"Ma'am, you don't belong here. You need to leave immediately." The words cut through the polished corridors of Nextech Solutions' Atlanta office like a blade. Dr. Amara Sinclair stood motionless, her expression calm despite the humiliation washing over her. Malik Dalton, a mid-level manager with determination etched across his face, gestured firmly toward the exit. Behind him, Clarissa Larkin shifted uncomfortably but remained silent, complicit in the unfolding discrimination. "I understand there's been a misunderstanding," Amara replied, her voice steady and measured. She clutched her simple black purse tighter, her professional composure intact, even as she felt the familiar sting of being judged by her appearance rather than her credentials. "No misunderstanding here," Malik insisted, his tone growing more authoritative. "This is a secure facility. You can't just wander into restricted areas without proper authorization." His eyes swept over her casual blazer and jeans with barely concealed skepticism. To him, she was clearly someone who didn't belong in their world of glass offices and corporate prestige. Other employees had begun to notice the commotion. Whispered conversations buzzed behind cubicle walls as curious faces peered over computer monitors. The scene was becoming a spectacle, exactly what Amara had hoped to avoid. Yet she maintained her dignity, refusing to raise her voice or challenge their assumptions with the authority she possessed. "Ma'am, please," Clarissa finally spoke, her voice softer but equally dismissive. "We need you to wait in the lobby while we sort this out." The two employees flanked Amara as they escorted her through the office, past bewildered colleagues who watched the procession with growing interest. As they walked toward the exit, phones discreetly emerged from pockets. Several employees began recording, sensing they were witnessing something significant. The irony was thick enough to choke on, though none of them realized it yet. What they didn't know was that the woman they were humiliating, the professional they deemed unworthy of their corporate space, held their careers in her hands. The person they were escorting out like a common trespasser had built the very company whose security they claimed to protect. In less than 2 hours, their assumption would cost them everything. The quiet woman in the simple blazer would reveal herself as the most powerful person in that building, and their moment of prejudice would become a lesson that changed their lives forever. Have you ever been judged before people knew who you really were? Have you faced discrimination simply because of how you looked or where others thought you belonged? Drop your story below, because today's narrative proves that assumptions can be devastatingly wrong. But let me take you back to how this all started, to the decision that led Dr. Amara Sinclair to walk into her own company as a stranger. Dr. Amara Sinclair had spent 15 years building Nextech Solutions from a cramped startup garage into a $2.8 billion technology empire. As CEO, she commanded boardrooms, influenced industry standards, and employed over 12,000 people across 6 countries. Her innovative software solutions had revolutionized customer service platforms worldwide, earning her recognition as one of Forbes' most influential tech leaders under 45. Yet success hadn't shielded her from the harsh realities that countless black professionals face daily. Throughout her career, Amara had encountered the subtle discrimination that lurks beneath polished corporate facades. She'd endured meetings where her ideas were dismissed until repeated by white colleagues, faced assumptions about her qualifications despite her MIT doctorate, and navigated boardrooms where she was often the only black face at the table. The statistics told a story she knew intimately. Black professionals comprised 14% of the national workforce, but held merely 7% of management positions. Despite her company's public commitment to diversity and inclusion, Amara suspected these numbers reflected a deeper truth about workplace culture that couldn't be captured in quarterly reports or diversity training certificates. That's why she devised her undercover mission. "I need to see how our employees truly behave when they think no one important is watching," she had told her trusted assistant just days before. "Company culture isn't what we say in our mission statements. It's how we treat people when we think it doesn't matter." The Atlanta regional office provided the perfect testing ground. Located in a beautifully renovated historical building that once served as a community center, it housed 300 employees and served as a model facility for the company's expansion into the Southeast. The office boasted impressive diversity statistics on paper, with recruitment efforts that specifically targeted underrepresented communities. but Amara knew the difference between hiring diverse talent and creating an inclusive environment where that talent could thrive. She'd heard whispered complaints from employees about microaggressions, about feeling invisible in meetings, about watching less qualified colleagues receive promotions they deserved. These stories haunted her because she'd lived them herself. On that crisp Tuesday morning, Amara deliberately chose her outfit with strategic care. Gone was her signature tailored power suit, replaced with a simple navy blazer, dark jeans, and comfortable flats. She left her luxury jewelry at home, carrying only a basic black purse instead of her designer briefcase. To anyone watching, she looked like any other professional woman, certainly not like someone who could fire half the building with a single phone call. Standing outside the Atlanta office, Amara took a deep breath and steeled herself for what lay ahead. She understood the risks of her experiment. If her employees passed this test, it would validate her faith in the culture she'd worked so hard to build. But if they failed, she'd be forced to confront uncomfortable truths about her own company's commitment to the values she held dear. With quiet determination, she approached the entrance, ready to discover whether Next Tech Solutions practiced what it preached. The glass doors of Next Tech Solutions opened with a soft whoosh, revealing a modern lobby adorned with the company's awards and diversity accolades. Amara stepped inside, her footsteps muffled by plush carpeting as she approached the reception desk. The familiar scent of fresh coffee and leather furniture should have felt welcoming, but instead, it heightened her awareness of every subtle reaction she was about to encounter. "Good morning," Amara said warmly to the young receptionist, whose nameplate read, "Jennifer. I'm here for an impromptu visit to observe daily operations." Jennifer's smile faltered slightly, her eyes scanning Amara from head to toe with barely concealed confusion. "I'm sorry, but do you have an appointment? I don't see anything scheduled and I'm not familiar with—" She paused, clearly struggling with how to phrase her doubt diplomatically. "No appointment needed," Amara replied calmly. "This is just a routine check-in." The receptionist's fingers hovered over her keyboard, uncertainty clouding her features. "Well, I'll need to call someone to verify your purpose here. Can I get your name and company affiliation?" Before Amara could respond, Malik Dalton appeared from the elevator bank, his stride purposeful and his expression stern. At 28, he carried himself with the confidence of someone eager to prove his authority. His sharp suit and polished shoes clicked against the marble floor as he approached. "Excuse me, ma'am," Malik interrupted, positioning himself between Amara and the main office entrance. "I couldn't help but notice you seem confused about our visitor protocols. This is a secure facility with proprietary technology. We can't have unauthorized individuals wandering around." Amara's heart sank as she recognized the familiar tone, polite words wrapped around iron assumptions. "I understand your concern about security," she replied evenly, "but I assure you my visit is legitimate." "That's exactly what someone without proper clearance would say," Malik countered, his voice growing sharper. "Look, I don't know what delivery you're here to make or which cleaning service sent you, but you're in the wrong area entirely." The words hit Amara like a physical blow. The assumption that a black woman in business casual attire must be there for menial labor rather than executive purposes was both predictable and devastating. She maintained her composure even as humiliation burned in her chest. Clarissa Larkin emerged from a nearby office drawn by the commotion. Her administrative coordinator badge swayed as she hurried over, her expression mixing concern with curiosity. "Is everything all right here?" she asked, though her eyes remained fixed on Amara with obvious suspicion. "I'm handling it," Malik declared with satisfaction. "This woman claims she has business here, but she's clearly lost or confused about where she's supposed to be." "Oh," Clarissa nodded knowingly. "Well, the service entrance is around back. Most vendors and contractors use that entrance to avoid disrupting our workspace." Amara watched the two employees exchange glances, their assumptions solidifying into certainty. Around them, other staff members began gathering, drawn by the unusual scene playing out in their pristine lobby. Whispered conversations floated through the air like poison. "Who is that woman?" someone murmured behind a potted plant. "Probably another one of those people trying to sell something," another voice replied dismissively. "Why is she dressed like she belongs here?" came a third comment, followed by stifled laughter. Each word landed like a dagger, confirming Amara's worst fears about the culture she'd unknowingly allowed to fester in her own company. The walk toward the exit felt endless, every step amplifying her shame as dozens of eyes tracked her movement. If you've experienced workplace discrimination, if you know the sting of being judged by your appearance rather than your qualifications, type "justice" in the comments. Because what you're witnessing represents the daily reality for millions of professionals who look like Dr. Amara Sinclair. At exactly 2:30 p.m., the familiar chime of the company-wide video conference echoed throughout the Atlanta office. Employees settled into their chairs, adjusting cameras and muting microphones as they prepared for their monthly all-hands meeting with headquarters. The routine gathering typically covered quarterly updates, new initiatives, and recognition ceremonies. Nothing particularly exciting for the 300 staff members logging in. Malik straightened his tie and positioned himself prominently in the frame, still basking in the satisfaction of his earlier security intervention. He had already crafted the story he planned to share with colleagues after the call, how he had professionally handled an unauthorized visitor who clearly didn't belong in their sophisticated workspace. Clarissa sat 2 desks away, periodically glancing toward the lobby where the strange woman had been escorted out hours earlier. Something about the interaction still bothered her, though she couldn't pinpoint exactly what felt off about the entire encounter. "Good afternoon, everyone," came the voice of the IT coordinator as screens across the office flickered to life. "We're just waiting for our CEO to join us, and then we'll begin today's session." Conversations continued in hushed tones as employees waited for the familiar face of their company leader to appear. Some discussed weekend plans, others reviewed quarterly reports, and a few speculated about potential announcements regarding the upcoming product launch. Then the screen changed. Dr. Amara Sinclair's face appeared in crystal-clear high definition, wearing the exact same navy blazer and simple jewelry she had worn during her morning visit. Her expression was composed but unmistakably serious, her eyes holding a weight that immediately commanded attention from every person watching. The effect was instantaneous and devastating. Malik's confident posture crumbled as the blood drained from his face, his hands trembling slightly as he gripped his desk. The realization hit him like a freight train. The woman he had dismissed, escorted out, and humiliated was staring back at him from his computer screen as the CEO of the entire company. Clarissa's mouth fell open in horror, her eyes widening to impossible proportions as the truth crashed over her. The administrative coordinator, who prided herself on knowing everyone important in the organization, had just discovered she had treated the most important person of all like a common intruder. Around the office, similar reactions played out in real time. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Coffee cups froze halfway to lips. The collective intake of breath was audible as 300 employees simultaneously realized the magnitude of their failure. "Good afternoon," Amara began, her voice carrying the measured authority that had commanded boardrooms for over a decade. "I'm Dr. Amara Sinclair, CEO of Nextech Solutions." The silence that followed was deafening. Not a single keyboard clicked, no papers rustled. Even the air conditioning seemed to pause in recognition of the moment's gravity. "Today, I came to observe our workplace culture firsthand," she continued, her tone professional, yet carrying unmistakable disappointment. "I wanted to see how our company treats individuals when leadership isn't obviously present. What I experienced has given me significant concerns about whether we truly practice the inclusive values we claim to champion." Malik slumped in his chair, covering his face with his hands as the full weight of his actions settled upon him. He had lectured the CEO of his own company about security protocols. He had assumed she was lost, confused, or worse, there for menial labor. Clarissa stared at her screen in disbelief, her mind racing through every dismissive comment, every assumption, every moment of condescension she had displayed toward the woman who literally signed her paychecks. The interactions I witnessed today demonstrate that despite our diversity initiatives and inclusion training, unconscious bias continues to shape how we treat our colleagues and visitors, Amara stated firmly. This conversation represents a turning point for our organization. The reckoning had begun. The video call continued in stunned silence as Amara's words hung in the digital air like an indictment. Malik's hands shook visibly as he struggled to process the catastrophic error he had made. Sweat beaded on his forehead, despite the office's controlled temperature, and his usual confidence had evaporated entirely. The mid-level manager who had felt so authoritative just hours earlier now appeared small and defeated in his ergonomic chair. Clarissa buried her face in her hands, her shoulders trembling with the weight of her actions. The administrative coordinator who prided herself on professionalism had become complicit in discriminating against the very person who had built the company she worked for. Her careful reputation, cultivated over 3 years of dedicated service, had crumbled in a matter of minutes. "I want to be clear," Amara continued, her voice cutting through the mortified silence, "that this moment represents an opportunity for growth rather than retribution. The bias I encountered today exists throughout our industry and our society. The question now becomes, what will we do about it?" Regional Manager David Chen, who had been watching from his corner office, felt compelled to act. His face flushed with embarrassment as he unmuted his microphone, his voice cracking slightly as he addressed the CEO directly. "Dr. Sinclair, I want to issue a formal apology on behalf of our entire Atlanta team," Chen stated, his words carrying genuine remorse. "The treatment you received today was unacceptable and contradicts everything our company stands for. I take full responsibility for the culture that allowed this to happen." Around the office, employees exchanged uncomfortable glances as the reality of their collective failure became undeniable. The casual jokes about the strange woman now felt toxic and shameful. The assumptions they had made based on appearance alone revealed uncomfortable truths about their own biases. "Your apology is noted, David," Amara replied with measured grace. "But apologies alone won't address the systemic issues we've uncovered. Effective immediately, I'm implementing comprehensive changes to ensure this never happens again." Within the hour, a company-wide memo appeared in every employee's inbox, its subject line reading "Critical Culture Assessment and Immediate Action Items." The message, personally authored by Dr. Sinclair, acknowledged the failure without naming specific individuals, but made clear that substantial changes were coming. "Today's incident has illuminated gaps between our stated values and our lived practices," the memo read. "While disappointing, this revelation provides us with a roadmap for meaningful improvement. Every team member will participate in enhanced bias recognition training, and our visitor protocols will be completely restructured to prevent future discrimination." The document outlined new accountability measures, including anonymous reporting systems for bias incidents and regular culture assessments conducted by external diversity experts. Most significantly, it announced the creation of employee resource groups with direct access to executive leadership. As news of the incident circulated throughout the building, conversations began shifting from shock to introspection. Longtime employees started questioning their own behaviors, recognizing moments when they too had made assumptions based on appearance rather than credentials. The transformation had begun, but the emotional toll was evident on every face as staff members grappled with their role in perpetuating the very discrimination their company publicly opposed. What would you do if you discovered you'd discriminated against your own boss? How would you handle the shame of realizing your biases had caused real harm? Comment below with your thoughts on accountability and redemption. Within 2 weeks of the incident, Nextech Solutions launched the most comprehensive workplace transformation in company history. Dr. Amara Sinclair personally oversaw every aspect of the initiative, ensuring that surface-level diversity training gave way to deep, meaningful cultural change. The first major implementation was mandatory bias recognition workshops for all 12,000 employees across 6 countries. Unlike typical corporate training sessions, these programs were interactive and challenging. Employees engaged in role-playing exercises, examined real-world scenarios, and confronted uncomfortable truths about unconscious prejudices. The training wasn't a one-time event, but an ongoing commitment, with quarterly refreshers and specialized modules for different departments. Malik and Clarissa, volunteered to lead the Atlanta office's first open forum session, sharing their experience as a cautionary tale. Standing before their colleagues, they described the shame and regret they felt after discovering they had discriminated against their own CEO. Their vulnerability opened floodgates of honest conversation. "I realized I've made similar assumptions countless times without recognizing it," admitted Jennifer, the receptionist who had first questioned Amara's presence. "This experience has forced me to examine every interaction differently." The forums became monthly fixtures, creating safe spaces where employees could discuss microaggressions, share personal experiences with bias, and develop strategies for inclusive behavior. External facilitators guided these sessions, ensuring conversations remained productive and educational rather than accusatory. Nextech completely restructured its visitor management system. Gone were the days when appearance determined treatment. New protocols required all front desk staff to greet every visitor with identical courtesy, regardless of how they looked or dressed. Digital check-in systems eliminated subjective judgments about who belonged in professional spaces. Dr. Sinclair instituted monthly town halls where she personally addressed questions about company culture. These sessions weren't scripted corporate presentations, but genuine dialogues about progress and challenges. Employees felt empowered to raise concerns directly with leadership, knowing their voices would be heard rather than dismissed. The story gained national attention when Harvard Business Review published a detailed case study about Nextech's transformation. Dr. Sinclair appeared on several prominent business podcasts, sharing her experience and the lessons learned. Her candid discussions about facing discrimination as a successful CEO resonated with professionals across industries. "Leadership isn't about being immune to bias," she explained during one interview. "It's about creating systems that catch our blind spots and hold us accountable for genuine change." The measurable results spoke volumes. Employee satisfaction scores increased by 23% within 6 months. Promotion rates for underrepresented groups improved significantly, and anonymous surveys revealed dramatic decreases in reported microaggressions. Most importantly, staff members felt empowered to speak up when they witnessed bias, knowing their concerns would trigger investigation rather than retaliation. Industry competitors began reaching out to learn from Nextech's approach. The company that had once failed its own CEO's test for inclusion became a model for authentic workplace transformation, proving that real change was possible when organizations committed to uncomfortable but necessary growth. 1 year later, Dr. Amara Sinclair stood in the same Atlanta office where she had been escorted out by her own employees. The transformation was remarkable, not just in policies and procedures, but in the genuine warmth and respect that now characterized every interaction she witnessed. "Change begins with uncomfortable conversations," Amara reflected during her anniversary speech to the Atlanta team. "The moment we experienced together was painful, but it became the catalyst for authentic growth that has made us stronger as an organization and as human beings." Nextech Solutions had become a beacon for workplace inclusion, with other Fortune 500 companies studying their transformation model. The company's retention rates for diverse talent increased by 34%, while anonymous bias reporting had dropped to near zero, not because problems were being hidden, but because the culture genuinely embraced equity. Malik, now promoted to senior manager, after demonstrating exceptional growth in cultural competency, regularly spoke at industry conferences about his journey from unconscious bias to authentic allyship. Clarissa had become the company's first director of inclusive operations, helping design systems that prevented future discrimination. The broader lesson extended far beyond corporate boardrooms. Dr. Sinclair's story demonstrated that authentic leadership required vulnerability and the courage to confront uncomfortable truths. Her willingness to experience discrimination firsthand, then transform it into organizational growth, showed that real change demanded more than policy updates. It required emotional intelligence and genuine commitment. The statistics told an encouraging story. Black professionals at Nextech now held 18% of management positions, exceeding industry averages. However, Amara remained committed to continuous improvement, knowing that progress required constant vigilance against complacency. We've proven that companies can evolve beyond their failures, she concluded, but only when they're willing to face those failures honestly and do the hard work of transformation. Her legacy wasn't just about building a billion-dollar company. It was about creating workplaces where every professional could thrive regardless of how they looked or where others assumed they belonged. Like this video if you believe in holding workplaces accountable for their actions. Subscribe for more powerful stories of justice and transformation that prove change is possible when we demand better. Comment below and let us know where you're watching from, because these conversations need to happen everywhere, in every workplace, until discrimination becomes a relic of the past rather than a daily reality.